Welcome, everyone. I'm Adeshawa Josh, and this is Africa Matters. This week, we begin with reports that the Ethiopian government and its allies have intensified an air and ground offensive against rebel forces in the northern Tigray region. The UN warns that the crisis is pushing Tigrayan residents towards starvation, with only 10% of the necessary humanitarian aid arriving in recent weeks. And we'll tell you how Zimbabwe is making sure farmers have enough seeds in reserve after a devastating cyclone in 2019 wiped out almost all their crops. And then we'll take you to Ghana, where an initiative encouraging people to grow their own food in sacks is taking root. Last November, when Ethiopia's Tigray crisis broke out, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed assured his people that the conflict will be resolved quickly. But so far, he's been unable to keep that promise. The latest round of government airstrikes in the northern Amara region shows the conflict is far from over. And as hundreds of thousands of Ethiopians face death, displacement, and hunger, calls for dialogue are growing stronger.
To narrow our political differences, we will conduct an inclusive dialogue forum. The dialogue forum will allow us to solve our problems on the table.
The federal government and the leadership of the banned Tigrayan People's Liberation Front strongly disagree on how to end the crisis, and it's so far proven impossible to bring both parties to the negotiating table. TPLF leaders want federal forces and the Amara regional rebels to withdraw their troops from the northern Amara near western Tigray as a precondition for dialogue.
The problem is that the conditions attached to negotiations and therefore any peace process are incompatible. There is the territorial issue in western Tigray, for example. Amhara region has taken that over, claiming it as their historical territory since the beginning of the war in November. That position is backed up by the Ethiopian federal government, and the Tigray leadership and commanders are absolutely reset on militarily reclaiming that territory, western Tigray. So there is talk of negotiations, but in reality, the positions are incompatible, and that is what is leading to continued fighting.
Amara and Tigray have been feuding over the land in western Tigray for nearly 3 decades. Amara leaders claim the disputed land was taken from them when the TPLF ruled the country between 1991 and 2018. So, last year, after Abiy Ahmed declared war on the TPLF for attacking several government military bases in Tigray, Amara fighters seized the opportunity to invade and reclaim western Tigray and have remained there since then. The TPLF retook much of Tigray from federal forces in June, shortly after the federal government declared a unilateral ceasefire to allow humanitarian aid into the region. But cross-border attacks have continued both in Afar and in northern Amara.
We are being killed. It's not because we support any party. It's a question of life and death for us. Our women are being raped. Our properties are being looted. We are being killed.
Really hard. Really hard. Too much. Too much. I don't know. Tell them your problems. Don't hide it. The reason I am speaking openly is to tell them our problems. It's for you. It's for you.
The TPLF blames the recent airstrikes in western Tigray on federal forces, though Addis Ababa is yet to confirm it carried out those attacks. Let's hear more from Corrado Chuck, a freelance analyst at Gulf State Analytics, focusing on the Horn of Africa. Thank you so much for joining us. You know, it's pretty hard to independently verify reports of renewed fighting. Should the claims be true, though, does the latest airstrikes change the dynamics of this conflict?
So, well, I think what we are seeing right now is something similar to what happened in November 2020. So there is an offensive led by Air Force, so airstrikes and drones, which back then managed to some extent make the government forces advance further into the Tigray region. But at the same time, what also the spokesperson of the TDF, the Tigrayan Defense Forces, affirmed is that the counteroffensive is already being arranged. So in the coming days, what we could see is high intense fighting, because Also, the Tigrayan forces have been prepared to counter this offensive, and so I intensified things on the ground are likely to happen, as they might be more ready than in November to face the Ethiopian offensive.
In what ways could these new attacks affect the prospect of a peaceful resolution to the crisis? And what will it take to bring the warring factions to the negotiating table?
Well, certainly this decreases the chances of a resolution anytime soon. As I said, the recent attempts at dialogue have been ineffective. And it's actually a very difficult question to try to assess a way forward to this, because on the side of the government, the international pressure so far, both from the African Union, other regional actors, and in also Western countries, the U.S., have been meaningless. I mean, didn't prove effective at all. Despite there are still some instruments, some means of pressure, economic pressure in particular, that could be helpful, and especially from the side of the countries which currently support militarily Ethiopia, that could be also an important incentive to the government to come to the negotiation table. But that would not be effective, of course, on the side of the TPLF, the Tigrayan forces, which don't have such a negative pressure. Like the negative pressure any threats wouldn't be as much as effective at this. So most likely, any positive incentives in terms of amelioration of the humanitarian conditions. So any potential opening of humanitarian aid corridors, that could be an incentive that TPLF could be able to managed to agree on to open negotiations with the government.
All right.
And of course, potential seat at the table on for any political solution, constitutional political solution for Ethiopia in the future.
Still to come on Africa Matters.
I am Isaac Kanleji. I will explain how Ghanaians living in cities are managing to grow their own food without any gardens or farmland.
In 2019, Cyclone Idai devastated parts of Malawi, Mozambique, and Zimbabwe and left millions of people homeless and hungry. I'm Columbus Mavunga in Chimanimani, and I'm near Zimbabwe's eastern border with Mozambique just to take a look at how people are recovering from the cyclone 2 years on.
Welcome back, everyone. We head to Nigeria, where the government is trying to revive palm oil production. The cooking oil was a major source of income for the Nigerian government until 1956, when the country discovered crude oil. Palm oil manufacturing is now dropped to less than 2%, but the government has launched new programs to try to salvage what's left of the industry and help diversify its economy, as Usman Aliyu Uba reports.
It's been called red gold, but it's not making much money for Nigeria anymore. The country used to export palm oil, but now it's forced to import it. Places like Mika Ojo's factory are just not able to keep up with local demand for the oil used in cooking and cosmetics. The Nigerian government is hoping to increase their number and revive the sector. It's aiming to reduce its dependence on petroleum and help create jobs by giving loans to local manufacturers. But many believe the government's financial assistance isn't trickling down to small-scale factory owners.
The central bank loan they have been talking about, we only hear it on the news, but it does not come down to the real local farmers. That's the problem we are facing.
Nigeria is the largest consumer of palm oil in Africa, according to the World Bank. Nigerians consume about 2 million tons every year. Most of it is imported from Asian countries. One of the country's biggest factories is trying to change that, and it's getting government help to do it. The Okomu Oil Palm Company in the southern city of Edo has been producing around 40,000 tons of palm oil every year. Its South African executive expects to double production by 2025 after receiving support from the central bank worth millions of dollars.
We as a company have had the benefit of getting a loan from the CBN based on the loans that the CBN have been giving to agro-processing companies, yes. We've been privileged enough to get a loan. It has certainly helped us. It has helped us to develop our new extension.
Smaller producers want the same kind of help as do farmers. There are demanding specialists from agricultural research institutes help them increase their production. Analysts say providing support to both small and big manufacturers will help revive Nigeria's once thriving palm oil business. Usman Aliyu Uba, TRT World.
We stay in the West African country of Ghana. An initiative is taking off to address the lack of adequate food for many families. People in urban areas are being encouraged to grow all kinds of crops in sacks. It's simple to do and requires very little space. Isaac Kaleji reports from the capital, Accra.
Victor Sabote is working on his sack farm at his home in Ghana's capital, Accra. 6 years ago, he fell in love with growing crops for his family. He has no garden or farmland, but all Sabote needs is a sack filled with fertile soil to plant his crop seedlings.
The sack, the sand, and everything was around, so I quickly put them together and started with okra and tomatoes. And the tomatoes, we were using it to, brush the tongue of our son by then, and also started using it to cook for him.
Now, Sabote grows crops including cocoyam, eggplant, and pepper all year round, just in sacks. Adopting such a system doesn't just put to use sacks that normally would be thrown away, it also enables people to grow what they eat and eat what they grow right in their own homes. Not far from Sabote's community is another sack farmer, Anthony Lawson. For more than a year now, he and his family have also been growing crops in sacks on top of their 3-story uncompleted building in Accra. Lawson even has an irrigation system that allows him to maintain production levels all year round.
This is just concrete floor, and then the sack is doing wonders. So these are some of the benefits I think people should give attention to. It also gives you the edge to control what you eat.
Sabote and one of his friends have launched what they call the Sack Revolution to encourage people to farm in sacks. On his Sack Revolution WhatsApp platform, he gives daily tips on how to get the best use out of them.
We want to ensure that in the next 5 years, every house within the city is able to grow what they can eat, what they eat most, and what they love to see grow in their own house at all times.
Sack farming is an emerging form of urban agriculture used in many parts of Africa. Sabote hopes it will soon take off in other cities in Ghana. Isaac Kaleji, TRT World, Accra.
To Southern Africa now, where communities in Malawi, Zimbabwe, and Mozambique are still working to recover from a 2019 cyclone that destroyed homes and farmland. One project that's starting to see results is Seed Bank System, where volunteers work with villagers to help restore food security. Columbus Bavunga reports from Chimanimani, near Zimbabwe's eastern border with Mozambique.
Queen Majokwiro is preparing for her future, separating seeds she can store in a bank in case another cyclone hits, like the deadly Idai that struck 2 years ago, destroying all her crops.
When Cyclone Idai hit us, we were taught to keep our traditional seeds at home and have a seed bank. That means we will not run out of seeds and we can sell the excess and survive with our families.
Queen Majokwiro is one of 30,000 people being trained by volunteers in sustainable agriculture.
We discuss various issues relating to disasters which might happen in our community and come up with actions which might be used so that we overcome the shocks. And they are planting that traditional seeds which are natural, and they use natural ways of planting and harvesting and storing the seeds which are helping them much when they are selling them to outsiders so that they can earn a living out of it.
Charles Mugocherwa works for Zimbabwe's Ministry of Agriculture in the Chimanimani district. He says it's important that seeds from all sorts of crops like maize, sugar beans, yam and pearl millet are grown by local farmers to be stored in a seed bank to safeguard against future natural disasters.
The seed project is helping after some parts of Chimanimani lost their crops and homes, so some farmers are now growing seeds to help the district recover.
The farmers are also being taught how to produce fermented biofertilizer, which improves the fertility of their land. The government of Zimbabwe hopes that these projects are introduced in some other areas so that more communities can move towards farming self-sufficiency. Columbus Mavunga, TRT World, Chimanimani, Zimbabwe.
And now to other stories making the rounds in Africa. This week, the UN Stop Court ruled in favor of Somalia in its disputes with Kenya over the direction of their border in the Indian Ocean. Kenya's President Uhuru Kenyatta has rejected the ruling. Somalia lodged a claim with the International Court of Justice in 2014 over a section of Indian Ocean territory with potentially vast oil and gas deposits. The dispute is at the heart of a long-standing diplomatic row between the neighbors. Vaccinations against the deadly Ebola virus have begun in the Democratic Republic of Congo, 5 days after a new outbreak was confirmed by the World Health Organization. A 2-year-old boy tested positive and later died near the eastern city of Beni, which was at the epicenter of the 2018-2020 outbreak. Health authorities are targeting people at high risk, including contacts of the confirmed case, as they try to contain the latest outbreak. On Sunday, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan will begin a diplomatic tour of Africa that will take him to Angola in the south and to Nigeria and Togo in the west of the continent. The trip is aimed at boosting Turkey's trade, investment, and diplomatic ties with African countries. More than 75% of Kenyans use firewood or charcoal for cooking, contributing to air pollution and in turn the climate crisis. But one company, Cocoa, is producing ethanol made from a byproduct of sugarcane that is an affordable and clean alternative fuel for consumers. Sena Silan has the report.
Restaurant owner Miriam Kamau cooks in her restaurant in Kenya's capital, Nairobi, from a stove burning locally produced ethanol instead of charcoal, kerosene, or liquefied petroleum gas. She is one of about 200,000 customers of Kenyan company Cocoa that sells bioethanol fuel to local businesses.
I have been operating this business for 7 years and have actually been using cocoa fuel for 3 years. I think I was among the first people in this area to use it when it came onto the market. It has helped me a lot. I don't even know the price of cooking gas anymore.
Ethanol from agricultural waste helps cut down on greenhouse emissions, partly because people don't use charcoal made from cutting down trees. Customers like it because it's cheaper and healthier.
I was using kerosene previously. It used to block my nose and chest and made breathing difficult. It used to make my cooking pots dirty because of the soot, and it was very expensive. I used to use $1 a day, but when I discovered cocoa, I found that you can refill for just 30 cents a day.
The United Nations Environmental Programme says sugarcane bioethanol can reduce emissions by 40 to 62% compared to petroleum-derived fuels. Cocoa distributes the fuel using dispensers similar to ATMs and plans to expand to 10 other Kenyan towns soon.
I am using the waste of the product that was used to make sugar and molasses and so on to create something that I can still reutilize it again and recycle it. So all in a way to try and also meet up with the climatic requirements we have now, the climate conditions now. We've known we have destroyed quite a bit of our forest coverage and so on and so forth.
In Kenya, thousands of households are still dependent on fossil fuel or firewood. But sustainable solutions like cocoa's have already sparked change that's likely to catch on with the public. Sena Saylan, TRT World.
And as Kenya in the east tries to reduce greenhouse emissions, Senegal on the west coast is battling with the real impact of the climate crisis. The country's old capital is on the front line, fighting rising sea levels. Warnings have been issued in St. Louis, where residents have been displaced by the encroaching Atlantic. Dominic Brian Amonde reports.
An 11th-hour effort to keep the rising sea at bay. Excavators are ripping up the beach to lay giant blocks of basalt. This is the grim reality in St. Louis, a UNESCO World Heritage Site. The city served as the capital before it was moved to Dakar shortly before independence in 1960. St. Louis is spread along a thin sandy strip known as the Langue de Barbarie, but it stands only a few meters above the sea level.
For several years, the inhabitants of the Langue de Barbarie have been confronted with only one difficulty, the advancing sea. But since construction started, we have become optimists.
The encroaching sea has already caused severe damage. Authorities say more than 3,000 people were left homeless after flooding in 2017 and 2018. This displacement camp is home to about 1,500 of them.
Life here is an ordeal. Our new lodgings are extremely hot, and we live there with our whole family as we have no choice. We have to stay here because our home was totally destroyed by the sea.
The disaster prompted the government to start building a 3.6-kilometer coastal barrier in 2019. The project, which also includes a housing program, is expected to be ready by December.
The aim is to gain at least 20 metres on the coastline and thereby free up 20 metres of houses, starting from the protective wall, and then to have 4 metres that will be reforested and left to the inhabitants for recreational activities, but which will not be inhabited.
The government says it's studying more durable long-term solutions, but as the fight to protect Senegal's coastline gains momentum, residents here hope this historic city will be saved from getting washed out to sea. Dominic Branomondi, TRT World.
And now to a groundbreaking project by Zambian students whose research is targeted at providing relief for asthmatic patients. Inspired by a friend's sensitivity to airborne allergens, she's hoping to develop a product that will reduce the need for inhalers and medical intervention.
My name's Florence Jedidiah Mlenga, and I am a student pursuing my bachelor's degree in pharmacy at the University of Zambia. And I'm 22 years old. I conceptualized an anti-asthma body spray that can potentially prevent asthmatic patients from going into an asthmatic attack, because this body spray is meant to keep their lungs stabilized at all times. My concept is a research concept, not yet a prototype, not yet existing as a product that's available on the market. So this is something that won because of the research itself. Any pharmaceutical product out there, you don't just put it in the market without fully testing it. In fact, minimum of testing for a pharmaceutical product can take about 6 years. There was a time when I was in first year and my friend actually wanted to use body spray and her cousin was there. She was like, oh, I forgot, she's here, let me go outside. So I asked her, why are you doing that? Then she was like, oh, my cousin is asthmatic. So it clicked to me that, oh, actually, these guys are actually allergic to a lot of things. So I wanted that balance whereby the asthmatic patients don't get to go into an asthmatic attack, and those who are not asthmatic can get to wear their perfume as usual. I was awarded as the first prize champion of FemBioBiz in 2019. And then in 2019, again, I was awarded as Best Student Startup at the Zambia Entrepreneurship Summit. And then in 2020 itself, again, I was awarded by the Pharmaceutical Society of Zambia as Young Pharmaceutical Innovator of the Year. And that award made me the first student to ever receive such an award. And in 2021, I received an award from the Economics Association of Zambia. And I was listed under the top 30 under 30 future of Zambia.
Brilliant. Before we wrap the show, we would like to take a look at what some of you had to say about some of the stories we've covered. Hamza liked our story about a Nigerian man who pushes a wheelbarrow for a living. And he says, Aziz is so hardworking. love that stories like his are being featured. And our story about the Somalia-Kenya maritime dispute got a lot of you talking. One viewer said, Somalia believes in peaceful solutions for African problems. Somalia has taken the case to court because Kenya was not showing up at the meetings to resolve the maritime dispute. That's our show this week. As always, let me know what you think about the stories you've seen on this episode. Share your thoughts and suggestions on what you want us to cover on Twitter using the hashtag #AfricaMatters. Or you can reach out to me on my personal handle. It's @AdeshowaJosh. Thanks, and I'll see you next week.